Now this next mod is a mod I would not recommend to anybody. Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Ruchin and this is the Krokem channel. Today I'm going to give you a walk around of my rig, Shadow the Toyota Tundra. I'm going to talk about all the modifications that I've done to the rig so far, and I'm going to share my pros and cons and my opinion on the rig and the build out up to this point. And I've built it up according to what I consider are things that I would need in overlanding, as well as some personal touches that I'd like for aesthetic reasons. Now, outside of YouTube, I do have more real-time updates on my Instagram page, so I definitely encourage you guys to check that out. Now, if you're interested in the rig or behind the scenes stuff, as well as just random stuff that I share in real time about my life and about the rig. Just a little brief background on the truck. It is a Toyota Tundra 2019. It's a limited with the TRD off-road package. Now, when I initially got it, I knew exactly what I wanted to do right off the bat, which was to change the tires, as well as to plastic dip to cover up some of the chrome. Now, one was for form and one was for function. Prior to the Toyota Tundra, I did have a Tacoma that I built out as well for overlanding, so I knew what I wanted and how I wanted to build it out before I got the truck. So let's do the walk around. So in the front at the bottom, one of the things that stand out and I've gotten a lot of questions about is the bumper and the winch. So basically it is a bumper that acts as a winch mount that can actually be tucked in behind the grille of the Toyota Tundra. And I like that because it allows me to have that more of an OEM look in the front end of the truck, as well as not have it protrude out too much forward. That is actually important to me in terms of finding parking spaces that aren't accommodating only long vehicles. So the reason why I wanted to get a winch is because I have been stuck before. If you follow my channel, you've known that I've been stuck in snow a few times, and fortunately I've been with friends and other rigs who have been able to recover me and to pull me out of those situations. But there are still times where my wife and we go by ourselves in one rig, and if we were to ever get stuck, I would love to be able to recover myself out. So a winch was a huge factor in being able to build out my overland rig. So the one I have is by Warren Industries, and it is the Zeon 12S. So it is 12,000 pounds rated, which is plenty enough for my rig. Now, I haven't had an opportunity to use it yet because I haven't gotten stuck, but I anticipate that happening in this winter season. Now, if you follow my channel and need to get recovered, you will see how I use them. Now, although a winch is a very important recovery piece of gear, it might not be for everyone. Now, if your idea of overlanding is driving to state parks or going to certain places where the roads aren't that treacherous and you don't drive in conditions where potentially you can get stuck, it might be something you should really think about as being maybe further down the list of mods you should get. And the reason I say that is because it does weigh a good amount. Now, next, the thing that I think stands out pretty obviously are the lights. I do have the Rigid Industries 360 series lights all around. On the bumper, I have the 6-inch 360 lights, and that is in the drive light configuration, which is more spread out and a little bit closer throw than something like a fog. Now that is great because it illuminates a wide area around the front of my rig when I'm driving in the forest when it's super dark. For the ditch lights, pod lights, I have the 4-inch 360 series lights, and that is in the spot drive configuration, which allows for more throw of the light further down the road, but doesn't spread out. Now with these 360 series, they do have amber backlighting, which I like just because, you know, at nighttime, you can just flip those on and people can see kind of better where you are or whatever. I just think they look really cool. And then as well as having the lights that are whites that throw amazing amount of light. And especially in my opinion, sufficient enough for the type of driving I do in national forest roads. And then also in the fog lights, I did replace the LED white lights with the rigid 360 fog lights. If you get fog lights, you want to make sure they're SAE compliant, which means they do fit the government standards to be able to drive them on the roads and are considered legal and acceptable. I know that some people run like ditch lights or pod lights that are super bright and they put them into the fog light section and then they just turn that on when they need fog lights on. It's technically not legal to drive that way, but you know, people still do. I think the most important thing to take into consideration when driving with some sort of setup like that is the fact that when you do turn on those fog lights, it could potentially blind the people that are coming in your direction. Now with these fog lights, I got them in the yellow because they are more visible through fog or dust, especially if you're driving behind someone in the desert or in some place where they kick up a lot of sand. The yellow and amber lights are actually more visible through that. And I don't know the science behind it, but it works. Now, before you buy these type of lights, I would definitely highly recommend that you research certain things like wiring. You should have some basic wiring knowledge for this because it is not just plug and play. So it does come with instructions, but I just want to let you know ahead of time, if you're not familiar with wiring, it might take you a little bit longer. It's not impossible, but it does take some research and learning. So now let's take you guys under the hood. First is an absolutely form over function type of deal, which is my SMB cold air intake. There are claims that it can increase horsepower, and I take that with a grain of salt. I'm not even relying on that. The main reason why I got the cold air intake is because of the sound. The way it is designed to bring in more air, bring in more cold air, but mainly I got it because it facilitates in being able to kind of bring a little bit more boldness to the grunt of the engine. And next we come to the trigger controller. This is one of my favorite mods. I love all my mods, but this has made my life a lot easier. With the Tacoma and on the Tundra, before the trigger controller came into my life, I actually ran wires to the firewall, built in switches into the cab of the truck, or both trucks, the Tacoma and the Tundra. Now, as I added more lights to the truck, I noticed that having 4 switches was insufficient. So now I'm able to have additional switches for the additional lights. Now, there are a lot of things I like about this trigger controller. One is the fact that you don't need to run any wires through your firewall. So you don't need to worry about running wires to your cab, because trust me, that is not an easy process. You just need to hook up all of your auxiliary lights or whatever you want to hook it up to just into the engine bay, into the module of the trigger controller. Also, there's an app that you can download which you can control the lighting or whatever it's connected to via your phone. So if you don't want to carry your switch. And I think it's pretty cool because if you have something like this and you're camping, let's say in your tent, and for example, in ours, it's a rooftop tent, and we want to light up the front of the truck or behind the truck, we can just use the switch to light it up instead of going back down into the truck or taking out a flashlight. So it's pretty cool. I like that. And moving on, the thing I've come to notice in the Tacoma and on the Tundra is that the stock battery sucks. So what I had to do was I had to change out the batteries on both trucks. And in this one, I decided to get the Northstar AGM battery. But something to take into consideration is the fact that these kind of batteries are much heavier. Also, they are way more expensive. Now, next on the side of my truck, I got the BFG KO2 tires. Previously on the Tundra, if you guys have followed my channel, I had the Falcon Wild Peak 83Ws. But when I was looking for 35-inch tires, they were actually back ordered, and I think COVID had a lot to do with it. But the only ones that were available at that time that I could get within a week were the BFG KO2s. So I decided to offer a 35-inch by 12.5-inch wide for 18-inch rims or wheels from the KO2s. Now, when I'm choosing a tire, my main important characteristic in a tire that I look for is the fact that it has good capability in the snow. There's been mixed reviews on the BFG KO2s in the snow, and I hope to find that out this winter. Now, before getting these tires, if you do want to get these tires, keep in mind that they have been known to be somewhat slippery in the rain. Also, they are more expensive compared to other tires in its class, and they are pretty heavy. But they have a reputation for being tough as nails, so that is something to take into consideration. And these tires are wrapped around the Stealth Custom Series Ray 10 wheels. I really like the bronze color of these wheels. Now, another reason why I want to get these wheels is because of the offset. It has a plus 25mm offset. What I'm going to go into next is the suspension lift, along with the wheels and the tires, and that combination, because of the offset, the tire size, and the lift, I do not get any cab mount rubbing, so I did not have to do a cab mount chop. But what I did have to do was I did have to kind of push the fender well in the front of the vehicle a little bit forward, thanks to Wanderlust Overland. And the only kind of rubbing that I notice once in a while is that full lock or full turn. It does rub a little bit against the stock skid plate. So the stock skid plate on the TRD Off-Road Tundra is a little bit wide. So I do have another skid plate that I have in mind that is supposed to be delivered hopefully soon. Segueing into the next, which is the suspension. I do have the Icon Vehicle Dynamics suspension, and it's the Stage 9 kit. And the thing that makes a Stage 9 kit a Stage 9 kit is the fact that you have compression dampening controls in the front and in the rear, as well as a leaf spring pack that comes to replace the stock leaf springs that come with the Tundra. It also has the upper control arms, which are full billet, which is amazing. Now with this suspension, I have my truck lifted about 2.5 inches, and there are a good number of reasons why you may want to consider getting a suspension lift, aside from the usual reasons, which is getting a higher clearance for bigger tires, as well as giving you that lift. A couple of other reasons is as you increase the load and the weight, which typically happens with Overlanders as they start adding mods to the car, which is bed rack, rooftop tent, bumpers, winches, and all that stuff. You want to have a good suspension which can bear the weight. And that is due to a combination of the coils, the coil strength, the struts, the leaf spring, the leaf pack. Another reason why I really enjoy this suspension upgrade is the fact that your driving enjoyment is substantially noticeably improved. And when I say that, I mean, for example, because of the settings, the different dampening settings on the suspension system, if I'm going on washboards, I can set it to the softer settings, go and not feel the jitteriness from washboards as I would with my stock TRD off-road suspension. Also, when I do put it on a stiffer suspension and I am taking freeway off-ramp or on-ramp or making turns and corners, I am not getting as much of a body roll, and that is noticeable to me. On a truck, it drives like a truck, and when you turn corners or when you're going on roundabouts, you will feel the body roll and lean. But with these suspension upgrades, I do not feel that as much, and it's a definite improvement. Something to take into consideration is something like a Stage 9 kit is very expensive, so it is something that you may want to take into consideration before trying to jump on something like that. Also, another thing is these suspension kits, whether it's Icon or any other brand that have reservoirs, they do need to be rebuilt and maintained, and sometimes annually or maybe even longer. But that is something also to keep in mind, that there's additional maintenance involved. Now, as we go down the side of the truck, you will know that I have side steps. People have asked me questions about these, and they've asked if these are actual rock sliders. And the answer is no, these are not actual rock sliders. These are actually side steps. There's like Nerf barbs or whatever you want to call it. My primary reason, believe it or not, was I wanted something that kind of stuck out more than the door panels so that I don't get as many door dings. And the reason for that is because the Tundra is a wider truck. So when you go park somewhere in public, more than often, you're kind of barely hitting the threshold and the edge of the parking spot. So if someone parks in and they're careless about opening their doors, they could definitely hit the side door panel of your rig. Because of that, that's why I got the side steps. Another thing is I knew that over time, as I was going to lift and get bigger tires, any shorter passengers that I may have would need to be able to use the side steps to get in and out of the truck. Aside from that, I don't really go on trails that have a lot of rock crawling, or I might get into situations where I would need actual rock sliders. I can still have a great time not going through those trails, but at the same time, maybe there might be a time where I want to challenge myself and do go on those trails that require rock sliders. So that is definitely something that I want to upgrade to and is on my list, but further down the list. So not anything as a priority. But these ones right now are Tyger brand side steps, and I got them off of Amazon. They're much cheaper than getting actual rock sliders. So if you don't see yourself going in situations or on trails where you need them, this might be a good alternative for you. Next, as we go to the bed of the truck, I do have my Leitner Designs ACS Classic Rack. I've gotten so many questions about this bed rack, it's ridiculous. So after installing these, I've noticed that I've been able to have a lot more storage on these pods, and this is important to me because soon, in a couple of months actually, I'm expecting my first kid, and we are going to have her in the backseat of the truck. But now with the baby, we're gonna need to free up that space. And something like this definitely helps because we can put the things we put in the back of the cab into those pods up there. And those pods are weather sealed. They do have rubber gaskets, so no water or dust can penetrate through that. And the great thing about these pods is that they also have locking functions too. So you can put stuff in there and lock them and keep them secure for the most part. Also on the other side, they do have mounting plates. As you can see is where I also mount my shovel and my axe. And the reason I have that out there is because I've been in situations where I've been stuck in snow or wherever where I need to shovel myself out. And it would have been nice to just be able to quickly grab a shovel. Sometimes if you're stuck in a situation, maybe you might not have an easier time getting into the bed of your truck. So I am able to just grab it from the side of the rack just like that. And the axe, it's actually not an axe but a splitting maul. So if we're going to get some firewood and we need to split it, that is the perfect type of axe to get. That's a whole different video right there, but if you're looking for an axe type of configuration that splits wood, I would recommend looking into splitting maul. So that's what I got on there, and that is all attached via quick fist clamps. With that, you require bolts and nuts and a washer to be able to bolt them down onto the mounting plate. What I would say to keep in mind and take into consideration if you are thinking about a rack like this is the fact that a part of the installation requires drilling into the truck in 4 different points. But aside from that, I love the rack. It's been great. And the main reason I got the rack is because of the rooftop tent. I have mounted the Roofness Falcon XL rooftop tent. The XL is a wider version of the clamshell design Roofness Falcon. So on the side of the tent, on the passenger side, I do have an awning, which is from CVT, Cascadia Vehicle Tents. From them, I do have a 79-inch awning, which is almost about the same length as the front and back of the rooftop tent. So it kind of sits flush, which is great. And what I like about this awning is the fact that it does have walls you can attach, whether it's a mesh. The mesh wall is great because it is great for bug protection. When Katie and I, we went to Glacier National Park, there were mosquitoes and flying bugs that we were able to put up the mesh and have total protection. It also has another wall that provides privacy, which you cannot see through. It's actually another fabric. It's like the polycotton blend that the rooftop tents are made from. And that you can zip up on all 4 sides and have total privacy as well. So as we come around to the back of the truck, we can see the rear tire swing out. Now this is a recent acquisition that I got for the build out. The reason why I got this swing out is because I upgraded my tires to 35 inches. Now underneath the truck bed where the spare tire sits in that well, you technically can't fit 35-inch tires in there. Some people said they have, but it requires a little bit of cutting and bending, and I did not want to do that. So because of that, I wanted to be able to mount a 35-inch spare somewhere on the truck, and this rear tire swing out was an option. There are some pros and cons to this. The pros is, of course, you can mount your 35-inch tire, as well as, since it's mounted via a hitch, you can remove it and store it in your garage or wherever if you don't need it. I plan to have it on there permanently until I decide to get a swing out on a bumper or whatever. But so far, it's just too early for me to give you a full feedback on it. So I will test it over time, and if I do notice anything, of course, I'll keep you guys updated as well on that. Some of the cons I noticed that could be an issue and something to take into consideration before buying these are the fact that you're going to lose some departure angles. And since it protrudes out more, if you do go try to climb on a steep hill, it could potentially rub against the ground behind you. Also, the other thing is because of how far the tire sits behind your tailgate, you are going to need to find parking, and if you do look for parking, that has a longer parking space, so you got to remember that as well. Now above that, I do have the rigid amber fog lights. These were the D-Series Pro fog lights. Actually, Katie got me for my birthday last year. These are fog amber lights that I used as pod lights in the front. Now, because I replaced them with 360 lights, I decided to mount them as one as a chase light in the passenger side and one as a truck bed light. The reason why I did that was so when you go driving around with a combo with other groups of people and you're driving in very dusty roads or very snowy roads, sometimes the dust will be so abundant that you will lose vision a few feet in front of your rig. Now, amber headlights, when you haven't flipped on, and they call them chase lights because when people follow you, they'll be able to see you better because that light cuts through all of that stuff. So I decided to put down the passenger side because if I put it behind the driver's side, it could potentially blind the person driving behind me. To mitigate that, I did put on the passenger side. Now the other pod, I mounted it inside the Leitner rack mounting plate facing in the bed. And the reason I did that is because if I am camping in an environment where there's a lot of flying bugs, they're not as attracted to the amber light. Also, the amber light does not constrict your pupils as much, so you have better night vision as a result. That's why sometimes on headlamps you'll see red lights. And I didn't want it to be an obnoxiously bright light into the truck bed at night if I need to get in there. And of course, those are all hooked up to the trigger controller. If I'm in my tent and if I hear noise behind the truck, I can just flip that on and it'll light up right behind the rig. Now on the truck bed is the decked drawer system. The decked drawer system, I mean, everyone knows about this stuff. Everyone knows what this product is, and I don't think I've ever seen any real bad reviews on this. This allows me for more organization, as well as previously this was more important because I had a lower bed rack, so I wasn't able to reach further enough into the back of the truck bed towards the cab. So what this allowed me to do is put stuff into the deck drawer system and slide it all the way in. Something to take into consideration when getting something like this is that it does add a lot of weight to your payload. It can handle payload up to 2,000 pounds and a little bit more, I believe, on top of it, but it does add that weight into your truck bed. That is another reason why I wanted to get the Stage 9 suspension kit, because it has the leaf strings, which allows it to be able to have more support in the truck bed. Aside from that, it's been great. I consider it one of my essentials as far as overlanding and organization. Once in a while, you hear the exhaust note on the Tundra, and that is definitely not stock. And what I have there is the Dirty Deeds standard budget muffler. It's basically like it's a catback exhaust system, which does not have a muffler. So no muffler. So it's more like a muffler delete. Some people like to call them straight piping, but it's not really straight piping because there's still a cat that's not connected to the headers, but connected behind the catalytic converter. And that is one of those things where I got it purely for form rather than function. I just like to hear the sound of the engine, especially the V8. So the combination of that exhaust along with the cold air intake provides that noise that you hear in some of my videos. Going inside the truck, I don't have a lot of mods in there. I just have a few things which I considered necessary at this point in time. I know a lot of people have setups like ham radio GMRS or CB radios mounted in there. I don't have that. I have handheld ham, handheld CB, and handheld GMRS. And that is something I am considering an in-dash ham radio, but that is further down the line and not a high priority. So in the dash, I do have the Trigger 6-shooter mounted on a Mob Armor magnetic mount. I actually just recently heard about Mob Armor. I didn't really know too much about them, and it's pretty crazy. Like, it is a neodymium magnet, which is a very strong magnet. The plate of the magnet is basically on a very strong adhesive that you mount on your dash, and then you put the mount on top of that, it just sticks. So you can remove it and put it back on there, and it'll just stick magnetically. And then I have the Trigger 6-shooter on top of that mounted right there. So it's very easy, convenient. I could leave the trigger controller switch on there or remove it out of the magnetic plate and just put it in my pocket and walk around if I need to use it outside at camp. Now this next mod is a mod I would not recommend to anybody. Now if you already have it, great. If you're thinking about it, I really would say think twice and really take into consideration what you're getting, and that is the Garmin Overlander. Now the Garmin Overlander was something that was supplied as a sponsorship through backcountry.com. The functionality is great. They do have iOverlander installed in there. They do have topographical maps. They do have waypoint finders. They do have campgrounds pre-filled in there into the system, and you can connect it to the internet to download more map points, waypoints, and campgrounds and things like that. But the downside of this thing, which I think is a big downside, is the price. At around $700, someone could easily download maps through Gaia, even Google Maps, onto their phones or onto their tablet and save a ton of money that way. So if price and money is a factor, this is definitely something you might not want to consider into your rig build out. Instead, just get a mount that can accommodate your cell phone or a tablet, and then download the software in there into offline maps or something like that and just use that. That's what I would recommend. But if money's not a big deal and you want something that has a good brand name behind it, maybe this is something for you. Now, there are a couple of things which you haven't seen in this video yet, which I am planning to introduce, and it is the organizational compartments behind the passenger and driver seat of my rig, as well as the trash bag carrier, which is all from Last US Bags. Now, I believe a spare tire trash carrier is very important because it supports the philosophy of leave no trace. Leave no trace is basically you pack out whatever you bring into camp. And 9 times out of 10, things you pack out are basically waste related to camp cooking, food, and even bodily waste. Because we want to maintain our public lands, we want to make sure that we keep them clean. And the spare tire trash bag carrier is the perfect way to do it. Very underrated, I think, in my opinion. People don't talk about it enough, but it is very underrated because it allows you to keep your truck bed clean relatively, or inside your cab from carrying the trash. And it's a better alternative definitely than leaving trash behind. I will go more into it in a future video, and I have some other videos where I mentioned the Last US Bags. It's called Oscar's Mobile Hideout. It is definitely exponentially better than the trash ruse, and I will explain why in future videos as well. So that is all the mods I have on my truck right now at this point in time. I am going to announce the winners of the t-shirt giveaway. The winner of the gray is 520 Sand Yoda Joe. And the second winner is Angela and Brandon Santa Cruz. All right, congratulations guys. Now I'm going to do one more round of giveaways. So if you've made it up to now, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So all you have to do to enter is tell me your color preference and your size. Colors are between the gray and the green. I will pick a winner for each color in my next video. I hope this was informative. I hope this answered your questions. If you do have any questions though or comments in regards to the build out or any of the items I mentioned, please feel free to put it down in the comment section down below. I try my best to answer every question that I get. Sometimes I do fall behind, but I do read them. And like I said, stay tuned because I got more build and modifications coming your way. Thank you for joining me on this journey through this video. There's a lot more coming. So with that said, be safe, take care, and I'll see you next time.